everyone, and welcome to the Real Positive Girl podcast with me, Sabrina. This is the show that'll help you become your best self, and today we are talking about what are you avoiding? How to face what overwhelms you, scares you, and brings pain. But before we jump into that, as always, I want to invite you to come say hi to me on Instagram. I'm at Sabrina Joy Perozzo, and I would love to answer any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, feedback, or topic suggestions that you might have for me, or you just can become friends in the DMs. That'd be great. You're also welcome to send me an email to realpositivegirlpodcast@gmail.com. I invite you to come and visit my website, sabrinajoy.com. You can send me a form in the contact me page if you would prefer to send a message to me that way. You can also sign up to receive my newsletter, which I think the first couple issues will go out bi-weekly, so like every 2 weeks. And then we'll see how well you guys like it, if you prefer bi-weekly or monthly. The first episode is actually going out to yesterday or this morning. It depends on when you're listening to this. If you're listening to this when it comes out on April 1st, 2022, it'll have already gone out, but you can still go to my website and sign up for that. And if you look in the show notes below, there is a link for you to get a free guide to 50 questions to becoming more self-aware. So check all of that out in the show notes below. But let's go ahead and jump into today's episode, which again is what are you avoiding? How to face what overwhelms you, scares you, and brings pain. So this is a good one because it's something that I've been struggling with, and I'm the queen at. I felt like putting things off can seem like the most simple answer, like the simplest thing you could do. You're like, oh, look, I've solved the problem. I'm just going to put it off. I'm not going to do it, especially if there is no due date or anyone keeping you accountable to what you should or you need to do. And, I myself, as I said, am a professional procrastinator, like for sure. It's something that I talk about a lot because I'm trying to work on it, get better at it. And I feel like I'm kind of getting better at it, just to be honest with you, but I'm a work in progress in regards to that, like most of us. But it's a skill that I learned early and one that I continue to excel at because I deal with being overwhelmed, fearful, and worried about how, uncertain things that we do not know how they will turn out way too often. Like, I deal with those emotions a lot. And the things that I tend to avoid the most are like telling someone bad news, working on something that is new to me and requires more time to figure out. I have to do like a lot of research and understanding about like what the heck this is, which this is probably why my newsletter was delayed a little bit like a month longer than I anticipated, because I had to actually figure out the whole sending it out and a mail thing. See, I know so much more about it now. And then also people that I've had a weird interaction with, I tend to avoid those people because I have emotions and I fear whatever their emotions might be about the thing, and having hard conversations, even though confrontation is a thing that I don't mind. But I feel like if there's hurt feelings or weirdness between me with someone, and I'm not just confronting them for something that they have to know or something they did wrong or anything else, it's difficult for me to deal with. So I'm sure a lot of you recognize that and and maybe relate to that. But as we all know, we can only avoid things or people for so long, right? I mean, sometimes we can avoid certain people forever. There are definitely people in my life that I have avoided for a long time. But I think it was a mutual avoidance, so that's what made it easier. But it's not ideal to avoid things forever, or try to, since there are emotions and experiences tied to that interaction that could help us grow and understand ourselves better. And I am all about self-awareness, which is, basically understanding yourself better and why you have the feelings, emotions, thoughts, decisions, desires, why you do all of those things and what those are tied to, what experiences and triggers and desires are, and how you work as a person, and being aware of when those big emotions come up and teaching yourself to respond rather than react, and all of those kind of things. So understanding yourself better and being open to growth is so super important to your everyday life. And life will be a lot better, not easier, but better when you are more self aware. Um, so that's why it's important to not be practicing so much avoidance behavior. But avoidance behavior is when someone escapes from having to deal with difficult feelings, experiences, people, conversations, basically anything that you aren't ready to handle in the moment, or maybe not anytime soon. And I really wanted to write in my notes like ever, but like I said, there's gonna come like a breaking point where you can't avoid something any longer, and it's not going to be as fun as when you originally should have just gotten it done. And a lot of this is rooted in fear and not knowing how it's going to turn out, or if it will work out the way that you hope, or that you need it to, that you perceive that you need it to. And while sometimes it's okay to put something off, this can become a really big problem if we are doing it all of the time. If that is just like our habit of like continually putting it off, avoiding it, and wishing it'll go away at some point. I feel like some of us have really been like, okay, I'm just going to pray that it goes away. I'm going to pray it away. And that's not typically how things work. And it's also, avoidance behavior is also considered a negative coping mechanism. And there's a lot of like positive coping mechanisms out in the world, like, breath work, mindfulness, counting, being able to reach out to someone, taking a time out by yourself, all these different coping mechanisms that are positive ones. And avoidance behavior is definitely a negative one. And, avoiding will, like, if we really want to think about it, like, the idea of actually avoiding anything and everything will really limit what we can do in life, because we keep creating boundaries that we won't cross, people that we won't see, places we won't go, experiences we won't go through, things we won't learn, and take the effort to understand. And that's just it's not ideal, right? And while it might feel nice for a while to not have to do the thing that you're avoiding, or talk to the person you're avoiding, anxiety could actually become a problem for you because of impending doom. Because, like, okay, you're like, okay, I'm going to put that off. But in the back of your mind, it's something that you have to do, you have to go through with at some point, despite how you might want to feel like you're wishing it away. Then once it comes closer to, like, or people pressuring you to do it or telling you that you have to do it, then your anxiety is going to just like rise like a rocket, because you have to finally do it and you put it off for so long. And the emotions and then the fear of like not wanting to do it or deal with it has like hit this like high peak that you're like, crap, now it's like 10 times worse, right? And yes, I do want to highlight this, because some people were like, well, what about this? So it can be helpful in the moment for those that like struggle with anxiety or panic attacks or panic disorder, and you know and you want to avoid certain things because they're triggering, because I've talked about triggers before and I totally get it. But if you continue to put it off, the symptoms just become worse. So that's why when I ever talk about like, knowing your triggers, I don't think I've ever said like the solution is to run away from it or avoid it. It's like you can avoid it at certain times in your life or opportunities, but you're not going to be able to avoid it forever. You have to be able to face it and, take up that fear and figure out a way to lessen the fear and the anxiety that it induces, so that you can not be continuously running away from this and kind of like live a more stable life than always on the run from these things. So yes, in the moment, if you know something's going to trigger you, sometimes you can like take a time out, take a break, but that doesn't mean you're going to avoid it and not deal with it at all costs. That's definitely not something that I am ever suggesting, because that's not how you grow and that's not how you become your best self and become better. Absolutely not by avoiding things. So if you do struggle with anxiety or panic, the symptoms could just become worse if you're continually just avoiding the things that are making you feel terrible. And one of the biggest things we are missing out on with avoidant behavior and leaning into that is the ability to tolerate discomfort. And I feel like I should talk about this in length you can let me know. Send me an email, send me a DM, let me know if you think that it's important to talk about tolerating discomfort and how to best do that. I feel like I kind of did that when I talked about how to step outside of your comfort zone, because I feel like being, chilling in your comfort zone is all about avoiding discomfort. But let me know. But yeah, so one of the biggest things we're missing out with avoidant behavior is the ability to tolerate discomfort. The more we have to do things we don't want to do, the easier it becomes to get those things done when we make the effort to face those things, right? We have the uncomfortable conversations when we have to learn how to do this new thing, right? Whether it's like an uncomfortable, like I said, conversation, learn something new, or even dealing with emotions that we've swept under the rug. I know many people where they just won't deal with it. They just okay, well, I'm just going to put off feeling angry or feeling upset or feeling sad or disappointed about this thing because I don't want to make time for this emotion because it kind of scares me how I'm going to roll through it. How am I actually will have to face how I truly feel about this thing. And will that carry on into other things in my life? And will that emotion, how long will I feel it? Will I feel it for an hour? Will I feel it for a day? Will I feel it for a week? And those things, those uncertainties can really bother some people. I totally get it. We are always going to experience discomfort in our lives, though. It's just going to happen. Life isn't going to just be happy go lucky, perfect all the time. There's going to be ups and downs, struggles, mistakes, failures, and discomfort. So learning to tolerate it is better than avoiding it until it blows up on us, because that's essentially what's going to happen. It's you're continuing to push it off, sweep it under until you have this mountain of crap, really, to deal with. And then it's bigger than it was when it started, and you're regret. You're oh, I should have just dealt with it then. It just sucks, right? So I'm really trying to encourage you, even though I'm talking to myself here where I avoid things, trying to deal with it sooner than later. So among just missing out on learning how to tolerate discomfort, we are also missing out on learning to problem solve better or just learn new skills sooner. If we are forced to learn something new, like me having to learn how to use a mail system to send out a newsletter, than being forced to, right? Because at some point we're forced to. So for me, I definitely put off the newsletter thing, and I was forced to because I set a deadline and people were signing up, and there's an expectation that they're going to get a newsletter on a certain date that I promised. So I had to do it. But I believe, and I don't know if I've mentioned this a lot, but problem solving is an underrated skill. It is. It truly is. If you know how to problem solve, then you are golden. I'm telling you. If you are able to problem solve most things in your life, you move forward in your life quicker with more ease and less anxiety. It's because when you problem solve something and come to a solution, a resolution, an ending, you feel confident because you figured it out. You figured it out. And even if you had to get some help or assistance, a little or a lot, doesn't matter, you still figured it out. And continuing to do this builds confidence and dampens the fear and worry that whatever it is won't work out, right? Because you're oh no, I was able to figure it out. And you want to just pat yourself on the back and be proud. And you're yes, I did that. I figured it out. And it just makes you feel so much stronger. But if we're continuing to avoid things, then we're not going to really tap into problem solving because we're not solving any problems. We are trying to push them back. We are putting them off. So just consider that problem solving is amazing, and it makes you feel really good. It makes you feel like a boss. And who doesn't want to feel like that? So if you aren't sure, though, whether you do struggle with avoidance behavior or not, consider if there are any situations, experiences, people, tasks, or emotions in your life you put off dealing with on the regular. If this is something you're continually even if you still don't know, maybe for the next week or two, really be okay, things that I'm oh, I'll do it later. Am I doing it later because I need to do it later? Or am I doing it later because I don't want to do it? I'm trying to put it off. There's some sort of fear or worry hidden behind there. You have to be self-aware and really open-minded about what could be happening in your mind But I do encourage you to do this so you can really figure out if this is something you're struggling with, if you are unsure. And, if you continually avoid certain things, the same things, you might be struggling with avoidance behaviors. So today, I'm going to share with you 5 tips on how to stop using avoidance as a coping mechanism and be able to get things done, uncomfy or not. So, number 1, make your task smaller if possible. This is one of the biggest tips for avoidance behavior, for tackling goals, going after things, really wanting to get stuff done. And a lot of times we can avoid a task or whatever thing we have to do because it's a lot, right? It just seems overwhelming. It seems like this massive thing that we cannot accomplish, that we cannot follow through with, but we can if we just break it up in smaller pieces. Now, I understand how this might not apply to having a conversation with someone unless you're able to break it into multiple conversations if you fear that you can't get it all out in one go. Or you can break up the conversation, still have one conversation, but in your mind it's segmented into 3 or 4 pieces where you say something and they respond, and then you say something and then they respond, and kind of like that where you're gently easing your way into whatever the tough conversation that you have to have, and then you can kind of slowly make your way there. But in regards to a lot of other things, if you are able to break the task apart where you're able to identify what would be the hardest, what would be the most time consuming, what is the part you don't like, what's the part that you don't mind, what's part that someone else could come and help and assist you with. Break it up and then maybe set a guide and milestones of okay, well, I'm going to do this one first, and then I'll move on to this one, and then this one until it's all done, and then you finished it. And then the bonus about breaking it up and then treating every little one kind of like a milestone that you hit. And when you come to the end, you're able to look back and be like, wow, I was able to accomplish this thing. I was able to do it, even though I still had to break it up in small parts, but that is the genius in it for you. And you feel confident. You're like, I did it. I was able to not avoid it, and I was just able to get it done. And again, these little wins that you have will continue to build confidence in yourself, and it'll be a little bit easier next time, and then a little bit easier next time, and continuing to build on your ability to just tackle things sooner, easier, with a stronger mindset, and then you're unstoppable, right? So make your tasks smaller if possible, and that will definitely help you to stop avoiding things you don't want to do. Number 2, identify the fear and worst case scenario. So if you fear having a tough conversation with someone, then identify why. Oh, are you afraid they're going to blow up at you? Are you afraid that they're going to be really sad? Are you afraid they're going to blame you for something? Are you afraid that they're going to sever the relationship? And really think about what is actually your internal fear with whatever it is. So maybe it's not a conversation, but that's just the example that I'm using. So maybe it's something that you have to do. What is the fear, the worry, the anxiety that is behind you just doing it now rather than putting it off? And then once you identify that, then you identify the worst case scenario. So if it's a difficult conversation, then identify okay, the worst case scenario, for conversations that I'm afraid to have, the worst case scenario is they will end up yelling at me and being really mad. And then maybe telling someone else about what happened. And so now it feels like there's gossip and rumors out there, and it creates more drama. And this is the worst case scenario for me. And then when I come up with the worst case scenario, I come up with okay, well, what can I do then? So if they do yell, I can be can you please not yell? Or you ask them well, what can you do to fix the situation if you were involved in it? Or if it's just really giving them bad news, you can just be well, give them suggestions on, hey, okay, well, this is bad news, but here are some things that could make it better or easier for you to deal with or accept this knowledge is true. So I like to, again, you want to identify your fear and be able to know what it is so that you can conquer that and be able to look that in the face and be why do I have this? Why is it this fear? Okay, I understand now. Because the more that you understand about the thing that you're trying to avoid and the things that you're fearing and worrying about, the easier it is to dampen those fears because you're able to reduce them to whether they are actually like rational fears or irrational fears, meaning like you actually have control over the situation or you don't. Because if you don't, then there's nothing you can do and you just have to continue moving forward. You just have to like wait it out and have faith that it's going to work out the best that it can. And then the worst case scenario, if you were able to like, really think that through and be like, okay, well, could that really happen? And if that could really happen, like for reals, then maybe you can like come up with a plan to counteract that and have in your back pocket when you have to go deal with the thing. So identify the fear and the worst case scenario. Number 3, get support and accountability to share your avoidance behavior with. So get support. So maybe it's like a therapist, a counselor, a coach, a friend, a mentor, someone, right? That you can tell them that you are continually avoiding this thing or you really want to avoid this thing and you need some encouragement. You need some motivation. You need some inspiration to like not do it and for them to like just be real with you and be like, hey, you should do it, or at least do this part of it, or at least get started and see where you go, as opposed to just immediately putting it off without even considering that maybe it's easier than you think to do. And then when I say accountability, maybe you do have someone else that also struggles with this or struggles with something else, and you can be each other's accountability partners. And you can call them up and be like, hey, or text them or whatever, and be like, hey, I am not really wanting to have to go and read this manual on how to do this new thing for work. And they're like, oh, well, I am dealing with the same thing, or I am dealing with the fear of going to this party with all these people because I deal with social anxiety and I don't know what to do. And you're telling them, hey, why don't you just go and just like introduce yourself to 2 people, and that could be like the minimum for you. And if you hit that and you still feel bad, then you can leave. But at least you're moving forward to face your fear. And they could tell you like, okay, well, whatever, like, why don't you just start reading the first or second the first 2 chapters, and then see how you feel about it and see if you understand that, if you need anyone to help. You know what I mean? Just like have the support or have an accountability partner so that you're able to like lean on someone else and they can kind of have a shoulder for you when you want to do it. And it's kind of like your sponsor being like, hey, I want to do this thing. And they're going to be like, no, don't do this thing. This is why. Let me help you get a starting point so you can be moving in the right direction. So that one's pretty simple. I usually put that kind of tip like towards the end. I want to put it right smack in the middle for you so that it is important that you know that I am always telling you that having support does not make you weak. It actually makes you stronger and more efficient with your time and your abilities so that you can get crap done sooner rather than waiting and letting your ego and your pride rule your life. No, no, no. Number four, don't assume, assemble the research. So a lot of times, including myself, when we are avoiding something that we don't want to do, that we fear, we are assuming that it's going to turn out bad. So usually with me, with conversations, I will not want to do them because I assume that it's going to turn out like the worst. Like the person is going to laugh in my face or judge me or yell or scream or be angry or hurl insult or, go and use that as gossip, as like fodder to make me look bad, right? I assume the worst. It's generally where I am. But instead of assuming the worst, or instead of like assuming whatever negative thing that you are thinking will happen, instead assemble the research. So really think like, okay, well, what has happened in the past? What is actually likely to happen based on the interactions I've had with this person? Or if you need to learn how to do a new skill, like, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to learn it. I think it's going to be too hard. It took so and so this long to figure it out. But instead of assuming that, just be like, well, the last time I learned something new, I picked it up fairly well. And even if I don't pick it up fairly well, I have several people in my life that I could ask for assistance in helping me understand it better. If the deadline is further out than it's pretty far out, then I have enough time to really like schedule in enough sessions to read and better understand and how to learn how to do this skill. And I know that when I actually learn it, I will feel more confident and better, and I will do better at my job. Or when I finally have the conversation, I'll feel better. I'll feel like a weight is lifted, a burden is gone, and I'll feel more free in my mind. So instead of assuming like whatever terrible bad thing, will happen, actually think of the research, actually say like, is it true? Is what I'm thinking in my mind actually true? Or is it just based on fears? And can we actually base it on like real life events and things that have happened and move forward from them, and also give myself a chance to do better in this situation experience than the last one, because we all need grace and a clean slate all of the time. So don't assume, assemble the research. And the last one, number 5, accept that growth is uncomfortable and something to be proud of. Growth is a beautiful thing. It's tough though, especially when you're like smack dab in the middle of it, when you have to learn something new, when you have to figure something out. It kind of sucks because if you're struggling to learn it, then it just feels like terrible. And you're just like, want to put it off. You're like, no, anytime I learned how to do math things, this is me, I struggle. And it's also like the reason why I avoid doing any spreadsheets. It's a problem. I do need to eventually do that. My husband was just telling me the other day, he's like, you know what? You're starting a business. You're going to have to learn how to do spreadsheets. And I was like, oh. And I know it's something I'm avoiding, right? But I know it's going to come a point where I can no longer avoid it anymore. And I need to accept the growth that will happen in me when I actually learn how to do a spreadsheet, even like a simple one. It's not that I don't know how to use one at all. It's just like the functions and all of this stuff. I don't know. And the organization of it, but I need to accept the fact that I will grow so much in learning how to do that, and that will be able to be helpful in multiple parts of my life, with the way that we run our life and our finances and everything. And it will be uncomfortable because I won't know what I'm doing, and I will make mistakes, and I will forget things and have to learn them again. But once I am done learning that, I will feel so proud, and I will feel proud along the way as I hit the milestones of like, oh wow, I learned how to do this thing, and I learned how to do that thing, and I am better at this, that, and the other. And now I can actually run a function and do like finances and blah, 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 right? And if someone asks me to do a spreadsheet, I am happy to do it. Probably still not, but I will at least feel good about it for my business. And so accept that growth is really uncomfortable, especially in the moment. Even if you are trying to, have a confrontational conversation, accept that the growth of you doing it is uncomfortable, because those conversations can be very uncomfortable, but you will be proud of yourself by the end after you have it, especially if you're able to do it with calmness and respect and understanding of the other person, whether it's like something that they did wrong or you both did or whatever it is. So accept that growth is uncomfortable. And that once you go through that growth, and even as you are going through that growth and you see the fruits of your labor, you will definitely be uber proud of that. And that will just continue the cycle of you wanting to grow, because you'll realize that you continually will be proud of yourself and you have something to show for all this work you're doing, right? So I just encourage you to do that, because it's so important. And so many pockets of life are uncomfortable. But if you reflect on those things, I'm sure you would say that it was well worth it going through those uncomfortable parts to get to the really, really great parts. So, well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast, again with me, Sabrina. Thank you so much for listening, downloading, and sharing the show. I really hope that you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, because, like I said, you will get into the next issue that's being sent out in the next couple weeks, and I think you'll like it. I'm going to try to add tips and links to things and make it fun. I'm going to try to make it fun. That's my goal. And also check the show notes below for notes for the show that could be helpful if you want to follow along with this episode. Also to go to my Instagram, send me an email, download that free guide for 50 questions to become more self-aware, and just all those things. But thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you all. Until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.